This is worksheet 6 of the Ionic Compounds packet, and this worksheet is really quite straightforward. We're going to learn how to write formulas if you're given the name of a compound that includes a special metal, or in other words, a metal, one of the 7 metals with the 2 possible oxidation numbers. So you've already learned how we come up with the names for these from the formulas. We're really just going in reverse. And this is actually pretty simple because the name tells you the oxidation number of the special metal. All right, so in our first example, we have copper Roman numeral 1 chloride. We'll think about what that Roman numeral means. It means that this is copper with a +1 charge. That's important to know because copper can also, in other circumstances, have a +2 charge. All right, so that's why that Roman numeral is there. So that's why we know that this is copper with a +1 charge. The chloride stands for chlorine, and that oxidation number we have to look up on the periodic table. All right, when we see that chlorine is in the 7th column of the periodic table, we know that it has a -1 charge. And then we're just going to swap and drop like we've done before. In this case, pretty straightforward. The +1 on the copper comes down and becomes just a subscript of 1, meaning we're going to have 1 chlorine. And the -1 on the chlorine comes down and becomes a subscript on the copper. No minus sign, just meaning that we're going to have 1 copper. And we could write this Cu1Cl1, but instead we can also just more simply write it CuCl. This last column, you've done this before. It just wants to know the total number of atoms that make up that compound, so you count the subscripts up. We've got 1 copper and 1 chlorine, which means we've got 2 atoms total. Sometimes, right, instead of having copper 1, you'll have copper 2, like in the second example. So this is copper with a +2 charge. And bromine, we look up, it's also in the 7th column of the periodic table, so it's got a -1 charge. Again, we're going to swap and drop. So that +2 on the copper comes down and becomes just a subscript of 2, no plus sign, meaning that we've got 2 bromines. And the -1 on the bromine comes down and becomes just a 1, no minus sign on the copper, meaning that we have just 1 copper. So this is CuBr2, and since we've got 1 copper and 2 bromines, we have a total of 3 atoms making up this compound. So you're going to go ahead and work on these the next time that you are in class, and hopefully it's pretty straightforward.